One of the most noble sentiments expressed in Jewish tradition is the concept of tikkun olam, of repairing the world, amending the world, fixing the world. For rather than seeing ourselves as consigned to enslavement and being powerless, Jewish tradition has at its core always understood that we are not without the ability to shape our lives. That is why the story of the Exodus, leaving the enslavement of Pharaoh, has been our national narrative, has been our core story from the very beginning. It is our people's way of saying to ourselves and saying to the world, just because it is this way does not mean it has to remain this way. And that is why Judaism at its very root preaches hope, a hope that is manifested in the belief that we can partner with God to make this a better world, and that the hatred and the violence and the bloodshed and the war that we see all around us are not constitutive elements of human society. But even our hope is tested in times like these, as we face a litany of personal and societal and global woes that seem particularly long right now. And as painful as all of this is, it's made even all the more difficult because it's reinforced by our own lack of confidence in the economy and also our lack of faith in our political leadership. If there was ever a time, though, that cried out for tikkun olam, this then is really it. And our instinct is to start by addressing the external issues and seeking to involve ourselves in causes and projects that deal with the problems that we perceive them out there. Now, I'm very proud of our congregation in many ways in this regard. We have taken upon ourselves a number of projects for bettering our world, for making tikkun, for making repair. When you leave here this afternoon, you're going to be given a bag that will be requested of you to fill up with all sorts of canned goods and bring it back on Yom Kippur, because we are connected with and are constantly seeking to help support SOVA, which is, among other things, a food pantry that provides for those in need, and anyone who's working in any of these kinds of places will tell you the need is not getting smaller. And so we give to causes like SOVA. And also when you leave here, you'll see out on the table a brochure, an information from an organization called Jewish World Watch, fantastic organization that directs our attentions to the atrocities that are unfolding in the Sudan and now in the Congo. These are but two examples of projects that we support, that we invite you to be a part of, if not directly through the synagogue, then we just simply seek to model the kind of involvement that we think is essential. We have an obligation to look to and address those external issues. And nothing that I'm about to say is to take away from the worthiness of those causes or our participation in them. However, if one looks at Jewish tradition, one understands that if we seek to address the problems that are out there, we can't start by addressing out there. If we seek to address the problems of the world as they exist, we have to begin addressing ourselves. There is a story that's told by the Chafetz Chaim. He was a great rabbi of his generation, and in fact, he gets the name and is referred to as the Chafetz Chaim because of his signature work dealing with Lashon Hara, dealing with issues of gossip and of harmful speech. And he tells the story of how when he became a rabbi, he wanted to change the world. And he struggled and he struggled and he fought and he tried and he utterly failed. And so he said to himself, okay, I won't change the world. Maybe I can just work on changing the Jewish community of Poland. And so he struggled and he struggled and he fought and he tried and he failed. And so he said, okay, maybe I can just work on the Jewish community of my hometown of Radim. And again, he struggled, he tried, and of course, he failed. So he said, okay, maybe the world was too big. Maybe the Jewish community of Poland was too big. Maybe my Jewish community of Radin was too big. I'll start with my family. Let me see if I can just change my family. Right. All right, you know where this is going, right? Struggle, tried, and? Exactly. And so then he decided, okay, I've tried the world, I've tried the Jewish community of Poland, I've tried the Jewish community of Radin, I've tried my family. I failed each and every time. Maybe if I want to make a difference in this world, he said, I should just start with myself. And so he did. He began working on himself, and as he tells his students, it was in making my own tikkun for me that I made such an impact on the Jewish community. As Dennis Prager wrote in an article I read of his in the Jewish Journal about a month or so ago, the road to a just society in the eyes of Jewish tradition is paved by individual character development. Which is to say, if I want to make a better world out there, I have got to start by making a better world in here. If I want to make tikkun olam, I have to first be willing to put in the work and do tikkun atzmi, my own repair. But how do I begin? How do I begin walking down this path of tikkun atzmi, of bettering myself? The answer to that is found in the very first question that God ever asks humanity. We read in the Bible, in the opening chapters of the book of Genesis, how God places Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and how God gives them one very simple instruction aside from tending to the land. One simple thing: don't eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And Adam and Eve, being the good teenagers that they were, what did they do? The opposite of what God told them to not do. And they went and they ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And they became aware. And they realized that they were naked. And in their shame, they covered themselves. They covered their nakedness and they hid. And then in a wonderful turn of phrase, the Torah talks about God as walking through the garden as the sun is setting, in the afternoon wind almost. And God looks around, and then God says, Ayeka, where are you? God looks around the garden, God can't see Adam. Ayeka, where are you, Adam? Now let us not think that this is a question designed to elicit information. Let's give God a little credit here. And let's just assume that God knew exactly where Adam was. God says, Ayeka, where are you? Not for information, but for understanding. And it's not God's understanding that's at play here. It's Adam's. Ayeka, he says to Adam, where are you? What have you done? Where are you hiding now? And this is the way of the Torah. For in every moment of every day, God calls to every Adam. For the word Adam in Hebrew means human being. And God asks us, Ayeka, where are you? Where are you right now in this world? Where are you in your life? What are you doing with your life? You only have so many hours, so many days, and so many years. Where are you? Are you doing what you should be doing? And this is the Torah's power. This is why the Torah remains eternally valid to us. Not because it tries to tell us what happened in the past. Its power comes because it addresses us in the present with the questions we need to hear. Ayeka, where are you? For just as Adam hid himself to avoid accounting for his actions, so too we hide, and we try to escape our responsibility for our way of living. We turn existence into a series of hideouts, in fact, burying ourselves in our entertainment and in our distractions, so we no longer have to face who we are. Because if we do face who we are, then we're going to have to take on that most dreadful of all challenges, change. Ayeka, where are you? Is designed to destroy our hideouts and shatter our illusions and awaken us to the possibilities of each moment, and that each decision that we make is pregnant with the possibility and the potential to bring more holiness, more sacredness, more divinity into this world, or less. It depends on us and the decisions that we make. Ayeka, where are you? However, starting with ourselves does not mean ending with ourselves. It does not mean that we should be totally preoccupied with ourselves. Hence, the second crucial step in tikkun atzmi, in repairing and bettering ourselves, comes in the first question that humanity addresses to God. I mentioned last night the story of Cain and Abel, and I'd like to come back to that right now. In that story, as I said last night, Abel and Cain both offer up sacrifices. Abel's is accepted, Cain's is not. And in the pain of the neglect and the lack of acknowledgement, Cain invites his brother out to the field and kills him. God then comes along and asks Cain, "Nu, where's your brother?" And Cain then asks the first question that humanity ever addresses to God. Hashomer achi anochi? Am I my brother's keeper? Knowing what he's already done makes the question all the more chilling. And I would argue that the answer to that question is really the rest of the Torah. And the answer is a resounding and resolute yes. You are your brother's keeper. Now, these words come from Cain's mouth, and they are directed at God, but really they are addressing us. They're addressing you and me. And it asks us, have I been my brother's keeper? Have I been willing to bear the burden of the other? Or have I added to it? In Hillel's famous statement in Pirkei Avot, chapter 1 of the sayings or ethics of our fathers, he begins by saying, "If I am not for myself, who will be for me?" Then the next one says, "But if I am only for myself, ma ani, what am I?" Now logically, it should have said, "Who am I?" But it says, "What am I?" because, as Professor Lewis Kaplan taught, if you are only for yourself, you cease to be a real human being. You no longer are a who, but you devolve into a what. In refusing to acknowledge and accept my obligations, my responsibilities for the other, I metaphorically become Cain, and ironically not only kill my brother, but also myself as well. Ayeka, where are you? Is the first step in the process of tikkun atzmi, of bettering myself. Like the shofar blast, it calls us. It calls us to be aware and to pay attention, to who we are and how we are in this world right now, so that we may live a full and holy life. And am I my brother's keeper? This lights the path we must walk once awakened, and it challenges us to live with humility and with compassion and with love. And it requires that we get into the right way, the right relationship with all people, those around us, our family, our friends, our immediate circles, our community, our society, and our world as well. For as the rabbis teach us, the Torah begins with all of humanity descending from one couple, from Adam and Eve. Why, they ask? To teach us that ultimately, for all of our differences, for all the things that set us apart, for all the ways in which we can distinguish and separate ourselves out from one another, we are all one family, ultimately all sharing the same parents. We are all, in a sense, brothers. Now, I know it's hard to kind of keep that awareness, and it's difficult to maintain a sense of my responsibility to the other. We live in a world that is filled with distractions, and it's only getting worse. We live in a world in which we experience the iPodization, as I call it, of life, where more and more in every single environment we go to, we are presented with and have the opportunity to experience the world as our own personal little playlist. It can be our music. It can be our TV shows. You go to the counter, it can be your hamburger. Everything is itemized. Everything is individualized. Everything is created just for me. I live in a very isolated world in this way. And it's becoming more so, not less. We live in a world where a fog rests upon us so that we can't see the other. We live in a world where we're filled with so much noise that we can't hear the other. We can't hear their pain. We can't hear their needs. We become oblivious to them. Judaism understood this, even going back so many thousands of years, even without iPods. Judaism understood the distractions that exist, understood that we are physical creatures shaped by our environment. That is why the Torah gave us so many physical reminders to focus our attention on what we need to be doing. We have tefillin for our arms, between our eyes. We wear talitot with the tzitzit on it. We have mezuzahs on our doors. We keep kosher, which makes the plate an almost edible mezuzah. And we have Shabbat even, which the Torah describes as an oath, as a sign. And so, when you leave here today, you're also going to get something. Everyone will have an opportunity to pick up one of these wooden coins. It says on it, on one side, "Where are you?" And on the other side, "Am I my brother's keeper?" So you can carry with you in your pockets the first question we were ever asked by God and the first question that we ever asked God. I do this as a way of reminding myself and all of us to keep constantly in our minds the question, where are you? Wake up. Are you acting as your brother's keeper or not in this very moment? Are you reaching out? Are you helping bear that burden? Or are we hiding? Hiding again, just like Adam did. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, the chief rabbi of Great Britain, writes that the only way to save the world is to begin with ourselves. And I would humbly add, and the only way that we can save ourselves is to recognize our obligation to the other. This is the paradox of the world in which we live. We are at our best selves when we are most sensitive to and aware of our responsibilities to the others and are willing to bear their burden and make it a little bit lighter. And so in the year to come, may you know where you are. And with this awareness, may you be your brother's keeper. Shana Tova, everyone.